Spencer Lee just absolutely annihilated his own teammate Drake Ayala over the weekend. There's been a lot of talk and chatter about it and what that could actually mean for Spencer Lee in Iowa. I'll be breaking down exactly what happened and the truth behind the whole situation. We'll be talking Soldier Salute, Midlands, and the Southern Scuffle, and all those medical forfeits that happened over the weekend. And this week's wrestling headlines presented by Defense Soap. Now let's stop stalling and get on with the first headline about the Soldier Salute and Spencer Lee, because I know that's what you can't wait to hear about. So let's look at the tape, exactly what happened here. This is from over on Twitter. Justin Bash shared this, originally streamed on the Big Ten Plus, I believe. And you see, this is the end of the match. Spencer Lee pins Drake Ayala, pushes off of him, backs up. This is in the Soldier Salute finals, by the way. Yes, he shakes his hand, and then you see, as he's raising his hand, he's like kind of giving him the stink eye, throws his headgear to the corner and mouths something. You see, he's still a little bit upset, but as he goes with this veteran here, he's kind of shaking his hand and, just going back to what he wants normally to be. But that was the situation that everybody was talking about over the weekend. Why? What exactly happened here? Well, this started in the semifinals. You see Pat Mineo tweeting out here that Spencer Lee won in the semis 15-5, but looked a little bit uncomfortable, right? He's still coming back from those knee surgeries. We know that Spencer Lee has knee problems. So he was favoring that knee a bit, but after the match, he tossed his headgear and basically said, I'm done. I'm not going to wrestle in the finals, which is understandable, especially since his teammate, Drake Ayala, made the finals on the other side. And what is typical in college wrestling is that if you are wrestling your teammate, 9 times out of 10 at a tournament, they're going to medically forfeit the guy who is not the starter so that the starter can get that victory and move on and not have any troubles, right? That happens. That's normal. Well, it seems that Drake Ayala wanted to wrestle in the finals. And whether it was Drake Ayala wanted to wrestle or the coaches saying, no, this match is going to happen, this match ended up happening in the finals. And like I said, there's been a lot of talk about this online. This is one of the comments from Twitter. Seth Ecker says, it makes sense Drake wanted to wrestle to win the spot. It makes sense that Spencer wanted to medical forfeit after 3 titles and a litany of injuries. It makes sense that Spencer had the reaction, friends or not. It doesn't make sense for the coaches to allow that. So the other thing that says, it's Seth Vosser said Spencer was not looking too happy at Iowa. Would have been wild to see him in a different singlet this year. I think that's a bit of an overreaction, to tell you the truth. Because the thing is, and this is my whole take on the situation, is Spencer Lee is the meanest dude on the mat. He is the nicest guy off the mat. And so we look at a couple things that could be true here. First of all, it's true that Spencer Lee probably should have medically forfeited in the finals. There's no reason for him to have that extra match where he could get hurt when he's going for his 4th title. It's a historic feat for him and for the Iowa program to have a 4-time NCAA champion. Wrestling an extra match where you're going to get injured when you don't need to wrestle against a teammate doesn't make sense. If there was a guy on the other side of the bracket, Spencer Lee, if it wasn't his teammate, maybe he would have wrestled, maybe he wouldn't have. But because if it was his teammate Drake Ayala, there was really no reason for it. Now Drake, on the other hand, it makes sense that he wanted to win the spot. For the Iowa Hawkeyes, it's next guy up all the time. We saw this with Thomas Gilman and Spencer Lee and all the freestyle stuff that happened. He left Iowa for Penn State because Spencer Lee was the next guy up. And it looks like a similar thing is constantly happening with the Iowa Hawkeye program. And you see this interview here is playing on Hawk Central. I actually listened to the interview from Spencer Lee after, and he didn't have a lot to say about the situation, but he seemed completely normal after. Because like I said, he's the meanest guy on the mat, and he's the nicest guy off the mat. And that's the deal. If you're going to go out and wrestle Spencer, he's going to treat you like he wrestles every other guy. It doesn't matter if you're his teammate or not. Spencer Lee's not going out there and doing that play wrestling crap like I see sometimes going on in high school, which drives me nuts. It's like, go out there and wrestle. If you want to have fun and play games, go do that in the room. Now, I doubt that's happening in the room too, but I think this is a bit overblown overall. I don't think Spencer Lee's going to be leaving Iowa. He was upset about this situation. I don't blame him. I don't know how much beef, quote unquote, there is between him and Drake Iola. I'm not in the Iowa Hawkeye room. But honestly, should we really be concerned that Spencer Lee wants to defend his house? Part of wrestling is being able to defend what you have built. And part of being a wrestler is defending not only yourself on the mat, but off the mat as well. And that includes taking care of your skin. Because as we all know, diseases such as ringworm and impetigo run rampant in our sport. And even if you're a non-wrestler, you should still be taking care of your skin to not get acne and dry skin. And the best way to take care of that is by using natural products that help you do it. That's why I specifically, as well as many other wrestlers, use Defense Soap, their body wipes, their hand spray, their soap that is all natural, helps keep your body cleaner than other soaps that are on the market. They leave residue on you, unlike Defense Soap. And if you want to know what it feels like to have actual clean skin for once, you can check out their products at defensesoap.com. It's at the first link in the description below. Thanks to Defense Soap for sponsoring this video. And that moves us on to our second wrestling headline, which is that Midlands were but the biggest headline out of this was Pitt's Dayton Pitzer. And by the way, all the results from Midlands and the Southern Scuffle are scrolling around the bottom of the screen, as you've already seen. Now, some of the big results from the weekend that happened in the finals is Eric Barnett secured a victory over Brandon Courtney, former NCAA finalist out of Arizona State, which was an impressive victory. We also saw Michael Kolyoko of Penn win over Chris Cannon. Cole Matthews of Pitt get a nice victory over Josh Edmond. Yaya Thomas ended up winning the outstanding wrestler, the OW of the tournament. And Northwestern ended up winning the entire tournament, the first time they've done so in history, which is interesting considering they've hosted the tournament for many years. Edmund Ruth of Illinois ended up winning the tournament. Just like last year, he won the Matman Open, because remember, Midlands was canceled last year. It was no tournament the year before that, all because of the virus and everything going around. And I'll be honest, last year really made me upset, and this isn't even in my take yet, but it made me upset because they canceled it when it should have happened. And I just said, teams shouldn't even go to Midlands anymore at this point, because that just PO'd me so much. Go to the Southern Scuffle. Or Illinois Matmen should have just had another tournament this year. I'm sure that was a whole undertaking to put on, but that just really upset me that they canceled it in the last week. Anyways, we get back to some of the results here. Quincy Monday defeated Dean Hamidi, and yes, Quincy Monday seems to be up at 165, which we thought he was at 157, going to drop down, but seems like he's going to stay at 165, and getting a win over Dean Hamidi was impressive for him. Reese Heller of Pitt ended up winning as the number 2 seed. Zach Bronigal of Illinois won in tiebreakers over Braxton Amos, and Lucas Davison beat Dayton Pitzer of Pitt. But that was the story of the weekend, was Dayton Pitzer, because yes, he won but in the finals, or lost in the finals, but let's see what happened before this, because in order to make the Midland semifinals, he ended up beating Colton Schultz with a reversal and a stalling call, and then riding time, he beat the NCAA finalist out of Arizona State. So 2 of NCAA finalists from Arizona State lost this weekend, and Dayton Pitzer did it there. And then in the semifinals, he had a defensive fall over Trent Hilger, All-American of Wisconsin, in the last seconds of the match to send him to the Midlands finals. Absolutely impressive weekend for Dayton Pitzer. So yes, he did lose to Lucas Davidson, who I want to give my hats off to a second here, because he ended up winning this tournament without surrendering a point, which is impressive in and of itself. But who is Dayton Pitzer? Well, Dayton Pitzer is a freshman of Pitt. I said you should have your eye out for him at the beginning of the season. He's a 3-time Pennsylvania state champion, and I'm reading this from Pitt's website, went 130-3 with 100 wins and a remarkable prep career out of Mount Pleasant area in Pennsylvania. Somebody who should definitely have your eyes out for. And not only that, but Pitt also had a couple other impressive victories, including Reese Heller, who in the semifinals, maybe quarterfinals over Hayden Daniels, ended up pinning him in an impressive pin. He also ended up winning this tournament at 184 pounds, along with Cole Matthews at 141 pounds. They had a couple of other finalists as well as Midlands placers, which was impressive. And it was a good tournament for Pitt overall. My take on this is that I guess Pitt is not out You know, I thought that maybe they weren't going to have the best of seasons after they took a loss to Maryland, but they're still a tough tournament team. And I think we could still see them competing for that ACC title. As far as 165 in this, and even what's going on at heavyweight, everything's in flux this year, and I don't even know what to say. And that moves us on to the Southern Scuffle finals. These were the finalists here, posted by Bashamania. But what ended up happening as results? Well, overall, I think the headline here is that they were just kind of a bit lackluster. I found the entire weekend lackluster, except for a couple of upsets. I don't know what you thought. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Yes, Dayton fixed one. That's no surprise. Andrew Alvarez of Northern Colorado had a good win over Alan Hart, just showing that he is a dominant guy at 141, especially with that win over Cole Matthews from earlier in the year. Jared Franek ended up getting a win. Shane Griffith, no surprise that he won. Dustin Plott, a good victory over Peyton Mako. Whit Lake. Now, Owen Pence ended up winning, which he had a pretty good win early on in Zach Elam. Overall, not a ton of shocking results here. It was a pretty lackluster tournament. I think a couple of guys to point out, Earl Smith of Intermat says Cam Steed, a true freshman of Mizzou, has had quite the tournament. Lost in the first round to Caliendo, then reeled off 6 straight wins for third at 165. Beat 2 NCAA qualifiers along the way, and actually even ended up pinning Kale Carlson, as you can see here in the second period, as this goes on. And, you know, Cam Steed is a guy who was not even in the top 100 coming out of high school. He's a 4-time Oklahoma state champion and a guy to watch out for. Another guy at 165. Just add him to your list of guys. But I think the real thing that happened here, which upset me a bit and upset some fans a bit, are all of the injury defaults. If you get my Fanco Wrestling newsletter, you know that I thought there were going to be some fun matches that happened. Shane Griffith versus Keegan O'Toole. David Carr versus Keegan O'Toole. We didn't get either of those. Didn't get David Carr, didn't get Keegan O'Toole. Andrew Alvarez versus Casey Swiderski. Nope. Rocky Elam versus Young. Nope. I even thought at Midlands, right? I thought we were going to be able to see Austin Gomez wrestle. Even Ridge Lovett was supposed to join the mix this weekend. And as a last second, even though he's not wrestling this season, he's taking that red shirt. He was supposed to join at Midlands at 149, but no. That didn't happen. Pat Mineo tweeted out, we really wanted to see Griffith and O'Toole go at it again. This was a weird late scratch for O'Toole. What happened? Well, I actually listened to an interview with Kevin Drescher, and one of the things he said is a couple of these guys, yes, are dealing with some injuries, which isn't ideal for fans, but also there's somebody, he didn't specify who, but somebody's dealing with the flu, and this is flu season, so that happens, right? It's a bit upsetting. Pat Mineo, who always likes to add a little bit of flair to the mix, actually said, wrestling wants more scholarships and coverage, but every tournament is now medical forfeit city. Can they just remove medical forfeit from the equation? Make it count as a loss. Corby, who works with Stalemate, said 6 medical forfeits in the Conti semis. 30% of the matches won't be wrestled. Why? Why is this happening? It's honestly a shame that we see all these injuries, and this is my take on the entire situation, is that I don't love it. I don't love seeing these medical forfeits, and I think it's a shame, and it leads to less exciting tournaments. It makes me less likely and less interested to watch Midlands and Southern Scuffle next year if I know that all these guys aren't going to be wrestling. And I'm sure as heck not going to go and fly out to that tournament if I'm not going to see it. If I'm local, sure, but I'm not going to fly out there, waste my money to see these guys wrestle, and then they're not going to end up wrestling. On the other hand, I will say I understand getting ready. Taking that time off, taking some time to relax. It's the holidays, and that's my biggest concern with all these tournaments. Why are we wrestling Midlands, and why are we wrestling the Southern Scuffle on Christmas and New Year's Day? Let these guys have a week or two off to be with their family, maybe eat a little bit. Nothing makes me more upset than that, and I think we should move those at least to the earlier in the season or a little bit later, so maybe some of these things start happening less. And with this, I actually have a lot of questions for the rest of the season. If you haven't checked out, I actually have a video talking about my top wrestling questions. I recommend that you check that out next.